Today we're working on Glance, which is a visual programming language for Haskell. And right now I'm working on the GUI. So let's first make sure it still works. So this is very rudimentary. Right now you just left click on a node and that snaps the node to the mouse position. And you right click to create a node. And the idea is that eventually this will become a full GUI. So let's start up the editor. And I've made a few issues and I've made a to-do list, so let's check that out. Okay, so the first to do is refactor and clean up the GUI. So let's work on that. So here's a to-do. It says use new type instead. Use new type for element ID. And well, we have this new type here, so we can get rid of that comment. Okay, so here's the logic for drawing the various items. There's some that are unused, like draw circle. So that's something we could potentially get rid of. I'll leave it in for now, since it seems like something we might want soon. So this can be a doc comment. Okay, now something that I don't really like here is all of this indentation. So I'm going to take a look at this and see if I can refactor this. So we take the inputs in the old state and we return the new state. And I'm going to try and turn on the LSP UI doc frame mode. Says, okay, so we have a comment, move the as moving node to mouse X, Y. So if there is no moving node, the new elements are the same as the old elements. And if there is a moving node, then we do this adjust. So we take the old node, the position, its size, and we get a new position. So this could probably be cleaned up with lens, which we aren't using here. So we could use where instead of let, and that would reduce some of the indentation. But I think it's not horrible, actually. And we're also updating the FPS. Okay, so the first thing here is that I don't need to have this in and then this new state here. I can just put an in here. Okay. So that cleaned things up a little bit. This function could be extracted. I don't think that's necessary now, though. Okay, now let's take a look at this timeout callback. And this is the one that calls UpdateState. And it's also the one that's updating the inputs. So we process the inputs and then we update the state. So this seems a bit strange. We have two functions that have the same input. So the question is, why are these two different calls and not a single call? Right, so this seems like unnecessary mutation here. So the question I have is, why does UpdateState need the inputs? Because the inputs are all supposed to be processed by process inputs. Let's look at UpdateState inputs. In mouse X. Oh, I see. These inputs are being... Okay. So the inputs are... Ah, okay. So we can have input events, and these events modify the app state. This seems needlessly complicated. And then here we modify the inputs ref, and we clear the input events stream, input events queue. So I think I can fold this process inputs into UpdateState. And so I think the architecture I want to move towards is where everything's basically some sort of event. And UpdateState takes in an event and modifies the state based on that event. So it's a fairly linear type thing. Which is basically what process inputs is doing. Let's add a to-do for now. Okay, so now we have this big function, start app, and we have these various callbacks here. This is all commented out. It has something to do with getting a surface. I think this can be used to have an initial surface and then modify it later. Okay, so I'm going to extract out this yeah, this can be simplified here. Uh-oh. Okay, so this is a function. And this needs to return a bool. Let's see if that works. Okay, that works. So I'm just going to delete all this code. And let's see if... No, it likes it down there. Okay, so now here's a bunch of code. And yeah, I think I want to extract this into its own function. So let background press event button. So here's a function. And so this is what happens when the background area, so that's this area, is pressed. So notice here, whenever you click a button, it says background press. And this happens no matter which button you click, even ones that don't do anything. So let's extract this whole function. And I'll need to And my computer froze. Emacs froze. Okay, Emacs is back. And, oh, okay. We need to do this refactor again. That did not get everything. Oh, I did copy that. Never mind. Okay. Seems like this is too much for LSP mode or something. That's unfortunate. Okay, I think I will... I don't know how to fix that. Okay, so I'm going to try to disable LSP mode. And also disable flight check mode. I'm sure there are some commands to stop the LSP server, but I don't know those. Oh, someone asks a question. What is Glance? Glance is a visual programming language for Haskell. Here's the GitHub. And you can take a look at the README, which has, which explains the visual language. So the old Glance, it just generates these pictures based on the Haskell code. And what I'm working on right now is a visual editor, so you'll be able to directly edit these images and use those to generate Haskell code, which you could then compile. Okay, so let's hope that Emacs is working again. And I'll be using GHCI the old-fashioned way. Variable not in scope state ref. Okay, so there are a few arguments I need to pass. Inputs, okay. I believe I had that switched. And it still works. And I want to actually flip these, have inputs refs first. And we need a top level signature. So I'm using Ormolu for formatting. So that's how I can just copy and paste and then save, and everything's formatted nicely. Okay, so now let's refactor this code. So I'm using when here. So this is a basically conditional execution. So when this expression is true, then this do gets executed. I guess technically not executed, I mean, since it's all lazy. But you get the point. Okay, so now this seems like a switch or a case based on the mouse button. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to extract this part out and this part out. So I'll have a right mouse button action and a left mouse button action. And we don't need these parentheses around the do. Now let's see how if that compiles. And no, we need the several things to get passed through here. We also need the mouse button. So I feel like this has revealed that there are a few too many dependencies in this code, so that's something I'm thinking about. Someone asks, what software... David asks, what software do you use for streaming? I am using OBS. So just a simple setup here. And I have a few filters on the audio mic. Okay. Okay, and that compiles. Now we do the same for the right mouse button. And I believe these functions will have the same type. And it turns out mouse button is not actually used in this function, nor is inputs ref. Okay, so now that I've extracted these functions, so let's see if we can do a case, replace these wins with a case. Let's see what happens. I guess presumably you could click both the right mouse button and the left mouse button. Let's see what that does. Let me first... So if I do the... So when I right-click on top of an existing node, it just creates a node. When I left-click, it will drag the node. So if I do both, it creates a node, and you start dragging a node below it. So I guess that's kind of cool behavior. But let's replace this with a case to see how that changes it. Okay, so I want to convert this back to the enum. So to do that, I have to subtract 1 and call toEnum on this. So I'm actually going to keep this code couldn't match type word. So I need to do a from integral. Oops. Okay, so everything's, if I use the left button, so this is using the right mouse button, makes the nodes. Left button is still moving the nodes around. So now let's try both at once. And interestingly, so if I do right, then left, it will create the node and then you start dragging it. If you do left, then right, it just creates the node. So I think this is very similar logic to what we had before. And I think that's because, well, it should be the same, since this mouse button, the wins were based on mutually exclusive conditions, right? The mouse button can't be two values at once. Okay, so I think this is clear code, because if you have mutually exclusive conditions, it makes more sense to have a case. Okay. So now there are a few things to clean up. And mouse button number is now not used. So let's export that. Let's make a function from, let's do that should just be a mouse button, singular. And this is the inverse of mouse button number, which indicates that I believe it's an ISO, the type class that you can use that you can use to encapsulate these functions. Okay. So this is the code we want here. No instance for should this be subtract? And so here there is a middle mouse button constructor that we need to handle. So this is just going to be do nothing. Mouse button number. Okay. So I just replaced pure of the empty tuple with empty, since yeah, it's not really important what exactly that value is, as long as it compiles. Okay, so you know, having this mouse button definitely should not be passed in here. If anything, this should be the mouse button number should not be passed in here. If anything, this should just be a simple mouse button. And I already have a to-do to refactor this. Okay, so that looks good. Background press looks good. Let's also print out which button was clicked. Okay, so I just extracted out the expression to find the mouse button, and now I'm also putting that in the string that's printed when you click. And we don't have a show instance for this, for mouse button. So now what should happen is when I left click, it should say background pressed by left mouse button, and the same for the other buttons. So now it says background pressed by left mouse button, middle mouse, and right mouse. Great, so I don't think I need to also print out... Looks like I also print out left click somewhere. So let's not do that. Okay, that looks good. Okay, so I think that's enough code for today. Let's see what we changed. Great, so that made the start app function significantly smaller. So now let's commit. And that will be the stream for today. Thank you for watching. If you have any comments or suggestions, feel free to leave a comment on this live stream. And if you're interested in contributing to Glance, please get in touch. Thank you. Bye.